"That's a fake document," the waitress whispered to the billionaire just before the $100 million scam. "What if one whispered warning from a stranger could save you from losing everything you'd worked your whole life to build?" Rachel Martinez had been working as a waitress at Romano's for 8 years, watching rich customers come and go, but she'd never seen anyone look at documents so carefully as the man sitting in the corner booth. James Wellington, though she didn't know his name yet, sat bent over a leather folder, his worn hands shaking a little as he turned each page. The golden light from the old chandelier lit up the worry lines around his eyes, and Rachel noticed something that made her stomach drop. The top part of those papers looked wrong, too clean, too perfect, like something just printed rather than from a real law office. She'd seen enough fake documents during her old job at the bank to know the warning signs. Her heart beat fast as she realized this respected gentleman might be walking straight into a trap. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Rachel had always been good at noticing details, a skill that helped her during her old job as a fraud detective before unexpected life changes led her to Romano's. The divorce had used up all her savings, and taking care of her teenage daughter while going to night school meant taking any steady job she could find. But those detective skills never left her. She'd learned to read people's faces, to notice things that others missed. James Wellington was everything she'd once dreamed of becoming. Successful, respected, confident. At 42, he acted with the quiet strength of someone who'd built a business from nothing. His expensive custom suit showed he went to important meetings and flew on private jets. Yet something worried flickered in his eyes as he looked at those documents for the third time. He'd been coming to Romano's every Thursday for months, always alone, always ordering the same grilled salmon and sparkling water. The workers whispered that he was some kind of tech businessman, though he never showed off his wealth or treated anyone badly. Tonight felt different. James kept checking his phone, looking toward the entrance as if waiting for someone important. The document spread in front of him had the title Meridian Capital Investments, a name that made Rachel remember something she couldn't quite recall. She'd heard that name before during her banking days, connected to something bad. As she refilled his water glass, she caught a quick look at the signature page. The notary stamp looked strangely flat, missing the raised bump that real documents needed. Her heart beat faster. The letterhead's letters seemed slightly off too. Modern writing trying to copy traditional law firm paper. These weren't just problems. They were red flags screaming fraud. James looked up, catching her staying nearby. "Is everything all right, miss?" His voice showed real concern rather than anger. Most rich customers barely notice servers as real people, but his eyes held warmth and interest. "Yes, sir. Just making sure you have everything you need." Rachel's training started working. Never blame. Never guess, but definitely investigate. She needed to find a way to warn him without sounding crazy or crossing professional lines. The restaurant's clock rang 9:30. James gathered the papers with new determination. His jaw tightened as if he'd made a final decision. Rachel realized she might have only minutes before he signed something that could destroy his life. The heaviness of that knowledge pressed against her chest like a real weight. The memory hit Rachel like lightning. Meridian Capital. She'd investigated them 2 years ago for suspicious money transfers that disappeared into secret accounts. The case had been stopped when important witnesses suddenly became uncooperative. But Rachel remembered the pattern. Fancy documents, impressive presentations, and victims who lost millions before realizing they'd been targeted by smart con artists. Her hands shook as she walked to the coffee station, trying to understand what this meant. If James was dealing with the same company, he wasn't just risking money. He was walking into a carefully planned trap designed to take away everything he'd built. These weren't beginning scammers. They were professionals who studied their victims for months, learning their weaknesses and wants. James pulled out his phone and called a number. Rachel tried to hear without seeming to listen. "Yes, Harrison. I've looked at the purchase documents. The terms look good. No, I understand we need to hurry. Tomorrow's deadline is tight, but..." His voice carried excitement mixed with nervous energy. "A $60 million upfront with the remaining 40 when we finish. It's a big investment, but the renewable energy business is exactly where we need to grow." Rachel's heart sank. $100 million. The exact amount that would ruin even a rich man if it vanished into criminal hands. She watched James's face light up as he talked about his vision for clean energy projects, his real passion for making a positive environmental impact. The cruelty of targeting someone's good intentions made her stomach turn. An older gentleman in an expensive coat entered the restaurant, looking around the room until his eyes locked onto James's table. Rachel noticed his overly confident walk, the way his smile seemed practiced rather than real. Everything about him screamed rehearsed performance. "Mr. Wellington," the stranger extended his hand. Harrison Mitchell from Meridian Capital. I'm sorry for the late hour, but given tomorrow's deadline... His voice carried the polished smoothness of a skilled manipulator. Rachel knew she had seconds to act. Professional rules said she should mind her own business, but her conscience wouldn't allow an innocent man to be destroyed while she stood by silently. The memory of her own money problems during the divorce reminded her how quickly safety could disappear. Nobody had warned her about her ex-husband's hidden debts. Nobody had protected her from losing everything. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. Sometimes strangers become guardian angels when we need them most. James stood to greet Harrison, the fake documents held in his unsuspecting hands. Rachel took a deep breath, knowing her next words would either save a life or cost her job. But some things mattered more than paychecks. Rachel walked to the table with careful calm, her server's training hiding the terror racing through her body. Excuse me, gentlemen. I'm terribly sorry to interrupt, but there's an urgent phone call for Mr. Wellington at the host station. Something about a family emergency. The lie came out with surprising ease, born from desperation to separate James from his predator. Harrison's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but social rules meant he had to allow James privacy during a supposed crisis. Of course, I'll be right back, James said, concern immediately replacing his business excitement. As he followed Rachel toward the front of the restaurant, she could feel Harrison's calculating stare boring into their backs. Once they reached the dimly lit entryway, Rachel's courage nearly failed her. James looked confused, looking around for a phone or host with a message. Her mouth went dry as she realized how big what she was about to do was, accusing a respected businessman of being targeted by criminals based only on her feelings and broken memories. Sir, there's no phone call, she whispered, her voice barely heard above the restaurant's background noise. But I need you to listen carefully. Those documents you're looking at, they're fakes. That man isn't who he claims to be. James's expression changed from confusion to doubt. I'm sorry, miss, but I think there's been some misunderstanding. Mr. Mitchell comes highly recommended, and Meridian Capital has an excellent reputation in the industry. No, sir, they don't. Rachel's voice gained strength as her detective training took over. I used to work in fraud prevention at First National Bank. I investigated Meridian Capital 2 years ago. They're smart thieves who target successful people with fake investment opportunities. The top part of your documents, the font is wrong. The notary stamp isn't properly raised, and the paper is too white for real legal documents. The color drained from James's face as her words sank in. She watched him mentally reviewing details he'd first overlooked, seeing the problems through her trained eyes. But the research reports, the money projections, all made up, Rachel continued, her heart breaking for his disappointment. They probably spent months learning about your interests, your values, your business history. They knew you'd be drawn to renewable energy investments because you genuinely care about the environment. James leaned against the wall, the weight of near disaster settling on his shoulders. $100 million, he whispered. It would have bankrupted the company, destroyed thousands of jobs. Have you ever faced something like this? Let us know in the comments. Sometimes our worst fears lead to our most important discoveries. Through the dining room's archway, they could see Harrison checking his watch impatiently, unaware that his carefully built trap was falling apart. James straightened his shoulders, and Rachel watched a transformation happen before her eyes. The worried businessman disappeared, replaced by the steel-willed businessman who'd built a fortune through careful thinking and quick action. What do we do now? He asked, and Rachel felt deep relief that he'd chosen to trust her judgment. We need evidence, she replied, her detective instincts taking control. If we can get him to reveal details about the fake company structure, we might be able to help authorities shut down their operation. They returned to the table together. James, now armed with awareness that transformed him into a powerful opponent. Harrison's practiced smile weakened slightly when he noticed the subtle change in James's behavior. Everything all right with your family? Harrison asked smoothly. False alarm. Thankfully, James replied, settling back with newfound calm. Actually, I'm curious about something. Your company's expansion into renewable energy. How many similar projects are you developing? Rachel stayed busy nearby, pretending to clean tables while listening carefully. Harrison's responses painted a picture of a huge criminal network, targeting multiple wealthy investors at the same time. We've got 17 major investors committed to various phases, Harrison bragged, his pride overriding caution. The beauty of green energy is that successful business people want to feel good about their investments. They're willing to move quickly when they see opportunities for both profit and positive environmental impact. James nodded thoughtfully, secretly recording the conversation on the timeline for fund transfers. Typically within 24 hours of signing. We've streamlined the process to avoid regulatory delays. Harrison's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Rachel caught James's eye and nodded slightly. They had enough evidence. James excused himself, supposedly for the restroom, but actually to contact his attorney and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. When he returned, Harrison sensed something had changed. Perhaps we should finalize the paperwork tonight, he suggested with new urgency. Actually, James said calmly, I think we should wait for my attorney to review everything in the morning. 100 million decisions deserve careful consideration. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales of ordinary people making extraordinary differences. Harrison's mask finally slipped, revealing the predator beneath the polished front. Within minutes, federal agents arrived at Romano's with quiet efficiency. Harrison attempted to maintain his innocent businessman front until agents showed evidence of multiple ongoing fraud investigations. The fancy documents fell apart under expert review, revealing a network of fake companies spanning several states. As Harrison was led away in handcuffs, he shot Rachel a look of pure hatred, recognition that her action had destroyed months of planning. But Rachel felt only deep satisfaction that justice was catching up with criminals who destroyed countless lives. James remained for hours, giving detailed statements to investigators. Rachel learned that her warning had prevented not just his money ruin, but the collapse of his company and unemployment of over 3,000 workers. As the evening wound down, James approached Rachel with tears in his eyes. I don't know how to thank you, he said quietly. You risked everything to help a complete stranger. My ex-husband once told me that good people don't exist anymore, Rachel replied. I guess I needed to prove him wrong as much as I needed to help you. James smiled, the first real expression she'd seen all evening. Would you consider leaving the restaurant business? My company needs someone with your detective skills. We're expanding our fraud prevention department. 6 months later, Rachel found herself in a boardroom overlooking the city, reviewing security rules for James's legitimate renewable energy investments. Her teenage daughter was doing well in private school, and Rachel had discovered that sometimes life's unexpected turns lead to better places than originally planned. The Meridian Capital investigation expanded into a multi-state task force that recovered over $40 million for previous victims. Harrison and his partners received lengthy federal sentences, but more importantly, their network was shut down. James kept a framed photo on his desk, not of family or awards, but of Romano's restaurant, where a waitress with sharp eyes and courage had changed both their lives forever. Rachel often thought that her banking career had prepared her for this moment, but her struggles as a single mother had given her the courage to act when it mattered most. Sometimes the most extraordinary heroes wear ordinary uniforms and serve ordinary meals, waiting for that important moment when their unique combination of knowledge and compassion can save the day. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales of everyday courage. Thank you for joining us on this journey of hope, justice, and trusting our instincts when someone needs help.